So our lesson today is going to look at exponential regression. And we're going to start out with a kind of a silly example, but we're going to pretend that Jeff Bezos is your dad. And before you were born, he's going to deposit $100 into an account for you, but then promise to double your money on each birthday. So to do this, let's complete the table over here. So let's start out with the fact that before you were born, so you were 0 years old, and he went ahead and put $100 into the bank. Then every single year, he's going to double your money. So when you turn 1, you're going to have $200. When you turn 2, you're going to have $400. You're 3 years old, you're going to have $800. 4 years old, you're going to have $1,600. And then by the time you start kindergarten, 5 years old, you're going to have $3,200 in the bank. Okay? So we can definitely fill out this table, that's no problem. But can you tell me how much you're going to have when you graduate from high school? Basically, when you're 18 years old, right? So instead of just going, okay, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and trying to go all the way to 18, that's not very efficient. What we want to be able to do is create an equation that would basically model this data. So this is something you've actually already done in linear functions when we created a linear line of best fit. But what we're going to do today is actually create an exponential equation of best fit. So it's very similar to what we've done in Desmos previously. So if you have your Desmos app open, you're going to want to follow these tables. So we first need to take that table of data and put it into Desmos as well. So we're going to click plus sign and add table. And then we were at 0 all the way to 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see, it usually does it for me. Not sure why it's not right here. 3, 4, 5. We started out with $100, and then we're now 200, and then 400. So take a second, get your data into Desmos. If you need to press pause, go ahead and do that. So now that our table is into Desmos, our next thing we have to do is we have to type in this equation to line 2. Some of that should look familiar, but some of it is different. So on line 2 of my Desmos app, I'm going to type in Y1 and squiggles, that's shift, and then right below the escape key or next to the 1. So our squiggle, which means approximate. And then instead of mx1 plus b, we're typing a times, so shift 8, if you're not sure about the keyboard, shift 8, b, and then we raise it to the x1. So again, remember, y1 and x1, we have to push those ones, and you want to make sure that you are typing it in exactly like you see it. Now there is one additional component here. In addition to typing that in, we have to click the log mode box. So you probably already saw it there in Desmos. There's this log mode that pops up right here. Go ahead and click that. And so what you can see now, if we come back to our graph, is we've actually got this exponential function that is trying to match our data. So don't forget, you can always click this plus sign, and that'll help us look at it. Look how beautiful that is. That'll help us look at the actual data values that we typed into the table, right? And you can see our exponential model fits it perfectly. So if we want to predict how much money you have by the time you turn 18, or if you can see here, we're going to say, well, you're going to buy your first house at the age of 30. Well, to make predictions, we have to actually type in to the next available column. So you can see that in the table, we're going to go to that next column, just like we did back in with linear functions. So click inside the table here, and then type in not the y equals part, but just the a times b raised to the x1 component. And right now what you should see is that all those numbers should be the same. And the reason why they're the same is that because our actual numbers are perfect, a perfect exponential function. So we have this perfect predictions. So now what we want to do is to make our predictions, we're going to type in. So the first thing I do is I get the bottom of the x column, I'm going to type in, let's see, what were we when we graduated from high school? 18 years old. If I type in 18, that is a big number. That is a big number. So what that number actually is uh, 10 to the 7th power is 7, move the decimal point 7 places to the right. So we're actually looking at, I think that's $26 million. You're going to have $26 million. Imagine, though, if you buy your first house at 30 years old. So if we type in a 30, that I can't even read it all because I don't have enough space there. Let's type it, let's click in there and see what that number actually is. Let's see, can I click over? I can't even see it. That's how big that number is. I can't even click on what that number actually says. Let's see, how do I copy and paste that over? Let me click pause here and figure out how to make sure we can actually view it. Okay, so I've got it here in this screen, and you can see we're at 1.07 yada yada, but times 10 to the 11th power. Times 10 to the 11th power. So what I want you to think about is what is that number if we were to actually write it out? So I'm going to I'm just going to approximate, but let me get this a little smaller here so you can see what I'm talking about. But 1.07, if we move that decimal point 7 places, so I'm going to write that, let's start writing that down. So 1 and then 0, 7. Okay, so we've moved it 2 places now. 3742, 3742. So far we have moved it 6 places. So we need to move it another 7 places. So we're just going to use zeros, right? Because there was a 11 raised to the 11th power. So if we do 6 more or 7 more zeros, I believe it was, right? There's 7 more zeros. So now 7 zeros plus the 6 digits, that gives me 11 raised to the 11th power. So in doing so, we look at how much money we have. There's a comma there, comma here, and comma here. How much money is this? So we're looking at 10 trillion, 737 billion, $420 million. That's the power of the exponential growth. Absolutely astounding. So our goal today is to do just this. Create a table of data, or take a table of data, create a model, an equation for that table of data, and then make some predictions based on it. So in the next couple of videos, that's what we'll be practicing.